Adana is here to give you a child, so I will not allow you killed my first unborn child, Ngozi said. Mama, you want my own sister to have a child for my husband? Adana asked her mother as tears flowed down her cheeks. It is not your sister's fault that she is fertile. She has done what you could not do in years. I don't want to know how Desmond wants to handle this, but my first grandchild will not be born out of wedlock, Ngozi said. Adana could not believe the words that were coming out of her mother's lips. Once upon a time, there lived two sisters, Adana and Ifunanya. Adana and Ifunanya were raised in the same household, but their mother, Ngozi, always favored Ifunanya. Adana was responsible and hardworking, while Ifunanya was pampered and self-indulgent. Adana was what people would call the good girl, the good daughter that would do anything to please her parents, while Ifunanya was the exact opposite. Ifunanya was stubborn, assertive, and very adventurous. Anytime her numerous adventures would result in conflict, she knew her sister Adana could always be counted on to clean her mess. On one occasion, their parents, Obi and Ngozi, had traveled to the village for a burial. Unbeknownst to Adana, her sister had organized a party, and she had cleverly chosen her parents' house as the venue. Adana had retired for the night, only to wake up to a party, and her 17-year-old sister was the host. Adana had tried convincing her younger sister to call off the party, but Ifunanya wouldn't listen. Before their parents came back the following afternoon, the party had ended, of course, but something terrible was brewing behind the scenes. Adana had taken it upon herself to clean up the entire house after the party had ended, and when her parents came back, they didn't notice a thing. Adana heaved a sigh of relief, but she had no idea what was about to unfold. 1 week after, Obi and Ngozi had been invited to a wedding. They looked beautiful and dashing, all dressed up in their stylish native attire. Obi opened his safe to take out his gold watch and his wife's gold jewelry set, and they were met with a big surprise. The safe was empty. Obi and Ngozi summoned everyone, which included their 2 daughters, a cook and a gateman. Obi brought to their attention that his safe had been tampered with and his possessions looted, but everyone denied any knowledge of the missing contents of the safe. Obi put a call to the police, and the 2 domestic staff were arrested and taken to the police station. Adana confronted her sister and asked her why she had not told her parents of the party she had thrown in their absence. Ifunanya, one of those people you brought here, could have done this. Please tell mom and dad about the party. At least let a proper investigation be carried out. Adana pleaded with her sister, but Ifunanya wouldn't hear of it. Don't say anything to mom and dad. They will soon calm down and release Musa and Ugo, Ifunanya said to her sister. Their parents did eventually calm down, but Ugo and Musa ended up losing their jobs. Ifunanya's lying and manipulative ways continued. When Adana would point out to their mother that Ifunanya's behavior of lying and manipulating people was not a good lifestyle, Ngozi, their mother, would get offended. Why don't you save your parenting skills for when you have children of your own? Why do you always find fault with everything your sister does? Are you a saint? She's your only sister. Stop finding fault and love your sister, Ngozi would say. Ifunanya grew up to be a very beautiful young lady. Before she graduated from university, she already had a line of suitors asking for her hand in marriage. But her deceptive and manipulative lifestyle followed her around like body odor. After Adana got married and moved to Abuja, Ifunanya got engaged. Ifunanya's fiancé, Arthur, had attended the same secondary school with Ifunanya, though he was years ahead of her. After Arthur's secondary education, he had returned with his parents to his country, Ghana, and later moved to the United Kingdom for his first degree and master's degree. Arthur and Ifunanya had met on social media, reconnected, and fell in love. Ifunanya had been so excited when Arthur came down to Nigeria to officially introduce Ifunanya to his family. On getting to the house, Ifunanya realized one unsettling truth. She had slept with two of Arthur's cousins. In Ifunanya's defense, the two men were not bearing the same surname with Arthur, and it was before they had started their relationship, but Arthur couldn't stand the fact that his blood relations had slept with Ifunanya. And so the engagement was called off by Arthur, and the news spread like wildfire. Tired of being mocked and gossiped about, Ifunanya asked her sister if she could move in with her and her husband, and Adana agreed. Despite their differences, Adana loved her sister and never imagined she could betray her. The betrayal came suddenly because Ifunanya's manipulative and wild ways was a part of her. Adana had traveled to attend a one-week workshop at Lagos, but the workshop had been cut short, and so Adana had to return. She had tried reaching her husband or her sister to tell them of the change in plans, but she couldn't reach them. After attempting to reach them with no success, she had gotten through to her housekeeper, who told her that everything was fine and they were expecting her. Adana got home and walked into the most disgusting sight. Ifunanya was in bed with her husband. The shock shattered her world. Desmond, Ifunanya's husband, attempted weak excuses for what he had done. Ifunanya, on the other hand, couldn't be bothered. Ngozi, their mother, told Adana that her sister had been seduced by her husband because he was sex-starved. She accused Adana of neglecting her marriage, claiming that if Desmond had strayed, it was because Adana had failed him. Ifunanya had moved out of Adana's home, and just when things were beginning to pick up for Adana, Ifunanya and their mother returned. Ifunanya told her sister and her husband that she was pregnant. Adana felt like she was in a nightmare that wouldn't end. "Just so you know," Ngozi said to her son-in-law, "my daughter will not abort this pregnancy. Adana is here to give you a child, so I will not allow you kill my first unborn child," Ngozi said. "Mama, you want my own sister to have a child for my husband?" Adana asked her mother as tears flowed down her cheeks. "It is not your sister's fault that she is fertile. She has done what you could not do in years. I don't want to know how Desmond wants to handle this, but my first grandchild will not be born out of wedlock," Ngozi said. Adana could not believe the words that were coming out of her mother's lips. With no support, Adana was forced to leave her home. Meanwhile, Ifunanya took her place, marrying Desmond and living in the house Adana had built. Adana struggled but refused to be defeated. She worked tirelessly to rebuild her life. Ifunanya's life, however, was not as glamorous as she had hoped. Pregnancy had resulted in a stillbirth. Desmond, the same man who had betrayed Adana, now cheated on Ifunanya with reckless abandon. What she had done to her sister came back to her. When Desmond finally abandoned her for another woman, she was left disgraced and broken. Desperate to escape the shame, Ifunanya moved to another city and married Obinna, a wealthy and principled businessman. She hid her past, presenting herself as a devoted wife. People often ask these questions: why do bad people prosper? Why do good things happen to bad people? That question is as old as time because things were looking up for Ifunanya. 6 months after her marriage to Obinna, she took in, and Obinna showered her with gifts. Ifunanya would post videos showing on social media all the luxurious gifts her rich husband was showering her with. Adana would watch the videos and cry out her eyes. She couldn't believe her own blood had taken bread from her mouth and put stone. For her peace of mind, Adana blocked her sister's account from her social media pages because seeing Ifunanya reopened the wounds in her heart that were taking so long to heal. But karma usually doesn't forget, no matter how long. One day, Obinna was having a business meeting at a hotel. He excused himself to use the restroom when he saw his wife, Ifunanya, walk into an elevator. If you're enjoying this story, please let me know by clicking the like button and subscribe to my channel if you haven't. Back to the story. Obinna took out his phone and put a call across to his wife. He asked her where she was, and Ifunanya told her husband that she was at home preparing to take a bath. Obinna couldn't believe his eyes or ears. Not long after the meeting was concluded, Obinna drove straight home. Of course, Ifunanya was not at home. He waited in the living room for hours, and after a while, Ifunanya returned. That was when Obinna started suspecting his wife. He now knew that Ifunanya was not entirely honest with him. Obinna was no fool. He had also noticed the tension between his wife and one of his staff called Daniel. Suspecting infidelity, he confided in his friend Emeka, who conducted a quiet investigation on Ifunanya. But Ifunanya's secret trips to the hotel had started long before the fateful afternoon her husband had seen her. During a corporate dinner 2 months after Ifunanya's marriage to Obinna, Daniel, one of Obinna's staff, recognized Ifunanya. His sister had been the wedding planner for Adana and Desmond's wedding, and she had heard of the scandal that had involved Adana's husband and Ifunanya. Well, Ifunanya, Daniel had said to her at the party. Or should I say, the famous sister who stole her sister's husband. Ifunanya had looked at Daniel in shock. She didn't know anybody in the new city she was could have recognized her or knew what had happened. I don't know what you're talking about, Ifunanya had said to him. Daniel simply laughed. Oh, don't be modest. My sister was the wedding planner for Adana and Desmond's wedding. I know everything that transpired between Desmond and you. Does your husband know what you had done? Panic filled Ifunanya's eyes. It's not true. It was just a rumor. But Daniel knew better. He began dropping hints in front of Obinna, making Ifunanya increasingly nervous. One night, he cornered her privately at another work event. You have a lot to lose, Ifunanya, Daniel had whispered to her ears, but I can keep quiet for a price. Terrified that Obinna would discover the truth, Ifunanya found herself entangled in an affair with Daniel. She despised him but feared the consequences of rejecting him. But secrets don't stay hidden forever. One evening, Obinna followed Ifunanya to a hotel and caught her red-handed with Daniel. The sight of his wife in another man's arms shattered him. At home, Ifunanya tried to explain, but Daniel had already uncovered everything months before. Her betrayal of Adana, her affair with Desmond, and now her affair with Daniel. I married a woman I thought I knew, Obinna had said to her coldly. All along, you have been nothing but a fraud. Ifunanya, I cannot stay in a marriage built on lies. Despite her begging, Obinna separated from her. Obinna had carried out a prenatal paternity test on the baby Ifunanya was carrying, and an ugly truth was exposed. The baby was not his. For the second time in her life, Ifunanya found herself abandoned and disgraced. With nowhere to go, Ifunanya swallowed her pride and went to Adana's house, seeking shelter yet again. One evening, Adana, who had been watching a movie with a friend, heard a knock on her door. She opened the door, and to her utmost dismay, she saw Ifunanya. Ifunanya stood there, heavily pregnant, disheveled, and desperate. Sister, please forgive me, Ifunanya wept. I have nowhere else to go. My marriage is over. I need you. She has the nerve to come here, Chinelo had said. After everything she did, be careful, Adana. She's reaping what she sowed. She's a snake, Chinelo added. Before Adana could say a word, their mother Ngozi arrived with Pastor Ikenna. Adana, the pastor said gently, your sister has wronged you, but God commands you to forgive. She has come to you in her time of need. Do not turn her away, the pastor said. Adana, do you hear what the pastor said? Their mother said, you must let your sister stay. You call yourself a good woman, yet you refuse to forgive your own blood. No matter what she did to you, she is your sister, and you have to forgive her. Adana's lips trembled. She turned to the pastor. I have forgiven Ifunanya, but forgiveness does not mean I have to let her into my home. I built this life from nothing after she destroyed me. I will not let history repeat itself. Ifunanya sobbed, sister, please, the man responsible for this pregnancy has abandoned me. I have nowhere to go. Adana's voice was firm. Neither did I, Ifunanya, but I found a way, and so will you. With that, she closed her door. Ifunanya stood outside, realizing that she had truly lost everything. Obinna had moved on, finding peace in his decision in ending his marriage to Ifunanya. Ifunanya was left to fend for herself. She struggled to build her life, and she learned painfully that betrayal never leads to happiness. Meanwhile, Adana thrived. Her business flourished. She had chosen dignity over revenge, and in that, she found peace. One day, Ifunanya saw Adana from a distance, happy and at peace. Tears filled her eyes as she realized the true cost of her actions. Some wounds never heal. Some bridges once burned can never be rebuilt. Betrayal may seem like a shortcut to success, but its consequences are inescapable. Trust, once broken, is rarely restored. Forgiveness is given, but trust must always be earned. If you enjoyed this story, do give me a thumbs up, subscribe if you haven't for more intriguing African tales. Thank you so much for watching. It is indeed my pleasure spending this time with you. Bye.